With excitement currently circulating around Bitcoin and the greater crypto sphere putting in some major long-term lows, we should be checking out some more tangible ways to confirm what this would likely look like, how long it would likely take, and what to, of course, look for in terms of validation or invalidation. With that said, welcome back to EllioTrades channel. I'm your host Krown, and we are going to be looking at a bit of a fractal analysis on Bitcoin to kind of judge where we are with that in the greater scheme of things. Now, with that in mind, I want to let you know if you are interested in a more in-depth and daily Bitcoin analysis, I do that exactly on my channel. So if you think that that might be valuable for your life, or if you just want to waste your time with me, then you can check it out in the link in the description below, of course. So I want to waste no time on this video. I want to get right into the bulk of the content here. And let's start it off with Bitcoin. Now, here's the thing. Oh, I'm getting my little drawing tools too ready already. But I want to preface this whole conversation by saying, while price action is known to be fractal in nature, it does not mean what I think a lot of people think it means, in the sense that, oh, this price action over here looks like this over here, therefore I can apply the move that happened in this area over to this region, and then voila, everything's all good and no holds bars, right? Of course not. We need to be matching things up with more tangible indications of what can actually validate something like this. So first and foremost, I am going to present the case as it is. We are going to be comparing our current low over the past month and a half in this region right here. Let me just circle it off. There we go. Lovely. With the summer lows in the $30,000 range over the course of about 2 to 3 months right here. Okay, so price action first, then we'll relate it to indicators and sentiment as well. All right. At the beginning of this big old dump in, of course, May, you see this first major move down right here. That is your wick low, thus setting in your range lows. So I'm going to draw a little line right there. Boom. And of course, after that, the rally does emerge to find your range highs. You'll notice it is specifically rejected at the green 55 exponential moving average right there. Well, you'll notice something relatively similar over here as well. First move down, okay, we set in a nice base right here, and then Bitcoin rallies up right around that green 55 and finds the range highs. Beautiful. Okay, so after the range highs are found and you get that interim breakdown of the medium-term time frame ranges right here, although not super important, I just wanted to mark that off because I like using drawing tools. But what happens after that? Well, Bitcoin comes back down. It even slinks ever so slightly lower on this wick low compared to the initial dump. However, and this is where things become a little bit more nuanced, this is key. I would not consider this fractal relationship broken until there is specifically a daily closure below that first initial dump right here. We can obviously get wicks lower, that's fine. Daily closures or closures in general are how you sort of validate a change in sentiment. And in this case, well, of course, we have that area right there. Bitcoin comes back down after rejecting the range highs, makes an ever so slightly wick lower low. That's fine. No closures on new lows below that initial 4th of December dump low. Very important. Then Bitcoin kind of grinds its way up, of course. In this case, I'm going to zero in on this one a little bit more. I don't want to draw too much on here, but basically Bitcoin gets an anemic rally attempt back up around the yellow 21 and sort of wedged itself into a nice interim range, basically right here. Course, what I'm talking about, and the same lows, just kind of keel on and over throughout that whole thing. Well, guess what we're getting right now? If we go over here, as you'll likely see, Bitcoin gets that first move up. We've tested around the 21. Do we expect something like this where it kind of oscillates and comes back down around the lows? Very likely, yes. Spending some time creating a range between about let's just say $45,000 at the top end to about $40,000 lows on the bottom end on closing bases or basis I's, whatever that means. Anyways, you'll notice after that, from this point right here in late June, this is actually June 22nd, to the next test around the base was about a month to July, in fact, July 21st to July 22nd. Well, once again, what are we looking like over here? you can imagine that if this relationship is going to hold to fruition, we'd expect it to take about a month around there. It doesn't need to be exact, just needs to rhyme. But we do see so far the time relationship between these two lows right here, very consistent with what we saw over the summer, of course. So my main message is that if you are bullish on Bitcoin, if you are looking for Bitcoin to have the lows, which I do think that there is a very good case for that actually, with the invalidation, yet again, with a daily closure below, let's call it 41,000 bucks, well, we'd be expecting Bitcoin to kind of stay within this range between 40 and 45, maybe even $46,000 on like a best case scenario to the upside short term. For the next few weeks, maybe even another month and a half. Again, this took about a month over here, and from this first initial dump on May 18th, well, that was a month from May 18th to, of course, June 21st, June 22nd. Very, very interesting timing right there, alongside a few other things, which I won't get into in a video like this. Nice, my steak's done, and I'm quite hungry, so let's make sure that we get the next few points on this. Now, I want to, or do I want to do that? Yeah. Oh, yes, this was also a big one as well. I want to pull up one of my favorite indicators here, or a version of one of my favorite indicators. This is called the Jewel Light. Anyone can get it for free. It's just found on TradingView. You just type it into the public library. It'll pop up for you. You'll notice also on the Jewel Light, we come down exactly right to what's known as the critical zone at this 20 read. This was, of course, our most recent move. Guess where this is right here? The initial May dump as well. Very interesting on the sort of relationship between those 2 points over these two major lows. So let's go back into our price action charts right here. And you can see even the RSI very similar, very, very similar. And it wasn't really until we saw the BBWP representing volatility get all the way back down around single digit percentiles where this one was really ready. And you can see right now, or just coming down, we're just starting to contract from 50 percentile. So this can take a while, obviously. And then, of course, stays down there for a while too. Okay, beautiful. So let's now go into the underlying market dynamics. I want to be matching this up under a few different metrics. And again, you can find all of this information for free on my own app at app.crowntrading, Krown with K, there we go, .net. And what I want to show you is, of course, the fear and greed index right here representing sentiment. And guess what? Or not guess what, but what do you know? We find a very similar relationship between the sentiment that we saw over the summer and what we're seeing right now, spending multiple months within the extremely fearful zone. Now, this is the summer times right here, of course, and you will notice, or you'll very likely notice if you're perceptive, that it took about 2.5 months to 3 months within this region right here. Thus far, Bitcoin's been within the extremely fearful zone for about a month and a half, let's say. So it is maturing, and if this relationship is going to hold true, we'd expect, another, somewhat just grind around this, short-term region, and then another retest around the lows, maybe even another full-on test down to 40,000 bucks, completely fine. Just don't want to see any closures on a daily basis below that initial wick low. That would very likely invalidate this for me, and no longer available. No more hopium, only doomium. No, of course not doomium, but looking for continuation of the downside to very likely the mid 30,000s after that. Okay, and then also I wanted to show over here this. This would be, of course, the global, should I show this right now? The global open interest. I mean, we've gone over this many times on this channel. This is not necessarily related to the information at hand, but I do think that it's worth pointing out that still, as we follow this data, while it has come down significantly, representing leverage positions being taken off the board here, we're still kind of above the basing areas that you would expect on a full reset. So likely that takes time. I imagine that's going to be spurred upon by shorts closing at the end of the day. But again, that can take some time. Anyways, the last thing that I'd really pull up within this whole relationship, and that does not mean that it's not important, just happens to be last today, is going to be the funding rate right here. So the funding rates, as you can see over the summer on that initial dump, got very negative. And then they consistently were negative for the next couple months on the lows, but trended up closer and closer to zero, and then flipped positive, obviously, to represent, kind of shift in the aggressiveness of the leveraged market, or the perp market in this case. Anyways, we see the same thing over here. It's not as visually obvious, but it is certainly there. On the initial dump on 4th of December, that was a spike down here. Doesn't need to be the exact same as before. Obviously, this is not as severe as the prior correction, but it's quite severe, I'd say. And what do we have right now? Well, we are still trending, or sorry, we are still in the negative, but we are trending towards zero. And whilst this is still, negative 0.07%, that might effectively be zero. So again, this is starting to mature quite a fair bit. I do think that this is still very much a possibility, a strong possibility, as long as invalidation is not hit. But we haven't talked about validation. So how do you validate something like this? Well, the earliest time to potentially validate this is going to be a break of the medium-term time frame range high. So that's going to be this right here. So what would the same area be on this chart? Well, that would be right here at about 40, a little bit above 47,000, let's say. Perhaps I could, now that I look at it, I could actually lower that just an ever so slight amount, somewhere down around here. More like 46,000. That actually looks a little bit better. Looks better, so it's right. What's full validation? Well, certainly popping back above the daily range highs. In this case, it was about 41,000 right here before, mega rally, for the next few months. Same thing over here, $52,000. The reason why this is also relevant is because, and I'm going to get rid of everything right now, is because of this. Well, you will notice that Bitcoin had, actually, now that I recognize this is also another interesting relationship. Bitcoin, back on over here, from January to the summer of last year, did have, and many people are calling this out as a head and shoulders. And to be fair, you can make a measured move on a head and shoulders, an implied target upon validation, which it never got validated, and also it wasn't really one to begin with. But we're just gonna run with it anyways because, well, this market's beautiful, and the reason why that is quote unquote BS, and I'll just say it right there, is your measured move is pointed all the way down to 2,000, which seems a little bit seems like a lot, man. Anyways, while this did actually have the structure in it for a little bit of time, when you see the right shoulder drag on for longer than what you see on the left shoulder, it's a good indication it's not going to work that way. But the thing is that with a failure of a potential head and shoulders, you actually do have an implied target on the other side. And guess what? That is applied to where the right shoulder would be upon validation above it. And guess where that is? Oh, is that at? It's like 70,000 or 60,000. Yeah, it's about 70,000. So very, very close. It doesn't need to be exact, obviously, but right around that region. If I probably did it, if I really got my magnifying glass out and I did it exactly right, it'd probably be pretty much right at 69,000 bucks if I had to guess. Well, we could do the same thing over here, obviously, and that is going to imply neckline right there, head right there, of course, your right shoulder right here. So upon validation above 52, there would be a technical target actually in the mid to upper $70,000 territory. So there's your clickbait title of the day: Bitcoin is $70,000 or $80,000, and there's nothing you can do about it. No, of course not, although it would be a little bit fun. But ultimately, I do want to just kind of present this case because, well, one, I don't see too many people talking about it, and then two, I think that it is valid for now, as long as those conditions are met. So I hope that this one serves you well. And of course, the reason why we talk about Bitcoin, as always, is because, it pretty much governs the rest of the market, except for a few one-offs here and there. Definitely get some questions about that. But in general, 90 to 95% of this market is going to follow whatever Bitcoin does in a more emotional manner, typically speaking. So hopefully this was in some way valuable or helpful to your life. I'm going to be signing off now. Take care and see you soon.